Now, let's try applying Newton's first law for problems in mechanics. So let us consider this example here. So you have two boxes that are attached to a rope. Tapos yung rope na yon passes through a pulley. And then your pulley is connected by a chain doon sa ceiling. Okay? Now, few assumptions. We assume that this pulley here is light and frictionless. By the way, light here is code for wala siyang mass. Pwede natin siya i-consider as if walang mass yung pulley na yon. Okay? Tapos, these two boxes have the same weight. They both have 23 newtons of weight. Ito yung gravitational force on them. Now, the question is, what is the value of tension for this rope? So, let's label that TR. Ano yung tension on that rope? Another thing that is asked is yung tension dito sa chain na yon. Let's call that TC, or tension on the chain. Okay, so how do we do this? Again, according to Newton's first law, if we observe that our system or our objects is not accelerating, kung hindi nag-a-accelerate siya, then the net force is 0, which means the x component of the net force is 0, and the y component of the net force is also 0. So, when looking at this situation here, we see na wala namang nagmo-move dito. No? So, all of them are at rest, and all of them are staying to be at rest. So, walang acceleration. So, we can apply Newton's first law sa lahat ng objects that we have here. Now, we know that the x component should be 0, and the y component should also be 0. So, in order to solve for the components, first, let us try to draw yung free body diagram ng objects natin dito. So, let's try to label itong first natin na box. Let's call this A. And then, yung next natin na box, let's call it B. And ang pulley, we will label it as P. Yun yung pulley. Okay? So, first, let's try to draw yung free body diagram ng A. So, again, we will represent object A, box A, as a point. And then, let's list down lahat ng forces acting on it. So, we have yung weight niya, which is, in this case, is given. That is 23 newtons. And then, another force acting on box A is the tension doon sa ating string. Tension ito. So, the direction is upward. And this is the tension from the rope, TR. Okay? So, wala na. Wala nang ibang forces acting on box A. So, next step is to draw our axis. So, we can use yung conventional axis dito. So, this is the x-axis. And then, this is the y-axis here. Okay? So, according to Newton's first law, since hindi nag-accelerate yung box A natin, then the x component of the net force, or the sum of the forces along the x, is 0. And the sum of the forces along the y-axis is also 0. So, let's try to look at ano yung forces acting on the x-axis. So, actually, wala, di ba? Lahat ng forces natin are along the y-axis. So, true enough, walang forces along the x-axis. So, 0 nga talaga siya. So, that is true. Now, let's try to look at the y-axis. What are the forces along the y-axis? So, we have two here. First, pointing to the positive y direction is the tension on the rope. So, let's write that. Substitute that to some tension on the rope. Tapos, another force that we have is the weight. But since it is pointing to the negative y direction, we will use the negative sign. So, minus weight. And according to Newton's first law, this should be 0. Okay? So, again, ito yung y component ng ating net force, and according to first law, that should be 0. Now, what we can do here is transpose yung ating weight to the other side. So, we have TR is equal to weight. Now, we can solve for the tension in the rope. Weight, according to our given, is 23.0 Newton. So, the tension pala in the rope is equal to 23.0 Newton. Okay? So, that's how we use Newton's first law in solving for the tension of the rope. Okay, so ganun lang. Now, let's try to look at yung free body diagram ng B. However, if you look at yung situation ni A and B, you'll find na parehong-pareho lang sila ng free body diagram ni A. And since same lang din sila ng weight, actually, you'll get the same values if you look at the free body diagram ni B. So, okay na yon. Pareho lang yung values na makuha natin if we look at B or if we look at A. So, same lang siya. So, this time, let us look at the free body diagram nung ating pulley. Okay? So, tingnan natin sa pulley. So, for the pulley, we represent our pulley with a dot. Tapos, let's list down all the forces acting on the pulley. However, dun sa ating problem, we've assumed na our pulley is light. So, this is code for massless. So, we will assume, although hindi naman siya ganun ka-realistic, no? Pero, for simplicity, we will assume that the pulley is massless. So, hindi natin siya pwedeng lagyan ng weight. So, walang weight acting on it kasi we assume that it is massless. So, what else? What else do we have here? We have the tension from the chain. The tension in the chain is upward. So, let's draw yung tension ng chain. So, this is TC. Okay? Tension doon sa chain. Now, what else? We have another tension here that is downward. Ito yung tension na connected kay A. Okay, so let's draw that. So, downward yung direction. And yung tension na yan, that is the same tension that we have here. That is TR, or tension ng rope. However, meron pang isang tension, no? Our pulley is also connected doon sa same rope that is connected to B. So again, that tension is still downward and that tension still has the magnitude TR. Pareho lang. Diba? So meron tayong dalawang TR pala dito. Kasi dalawa yung rope that is directed downwards from our pulley. Okay, so this is now the free body diagram ng ating pulley. Choose an axis for this free body diagram. So, we will use the conventional axis, X dito, Y dito. Okay? Now, according to Newton's first law, hindi naman nag-move yung pulley natin. Wala naman siyang acceleration. So, according to Newton's first law, the sum of the forces along the X should be 0. Or yung X component ng ating net force is 0. If you look at yung diagram, true enough, walang force along the X. So, 0 is equal to 0. That is true. Now, this also means, since walang acceleration sa ating pulley, the sum of forces along the Y is also 0. Now, here, we can list down lahat ng forces acting on the object that is along the Y-axis. So, yung first, we have the tension due to the string. It is pointing upward, so that is positive. So, let's write that T sub C. Next, we have two T sub R's that is pointing downward. No? So, since pointing sila downward, they will take the negative sign. So, we have minus T sub R minus T sub R. And then, the sum of the forces along the y-axis should be equal to 0. Now, if we move around yung ating terms, these two terms here, lipat natin sa other side. So, we'll have the tension on the chain is equal to twice the tension of the rope. Now, since meron na tayong tension on the rope, this is simply equal to 2 times the tension in the rope. Meron tayo dito, that is 23.0 newtons. So, we have 23.0 newtons, which gives us the final answer. The tension on the chain is equal to 46.0 newtons. So, ito yung sagot natin. Okay? So, using Newton's first law, na-solve natin yung tension sa ating rope. We found out na the tension in this rope is 23.0 newtons. Thus, we were also able to solve for the tension sa chain, which is 46.0 newtons. So, ganun lang. If the object is not accelerating, whatever objects na nasa system natin, if it is not accelerating, then the sum of forces along X is 0, and the sum of forces along Y is also 0. That's how we apply Newton's first law in solving problems in dynamics.